Ralph S. Mosher, Mosher, 2759 Gulf to Bay, number 406, Clearwater, Florida, phone 813-797-8425, at his home in Clearwater on Monday, February the 20th, 1989, with Helen Earley of the Oldsmobile History Center. Tape 1 of 1 tape. We'll do it right here. We like to have people tell us who they are, where they're living, and then if you'll start with your career and just whatever comes to your mind, Ralph, that you'd like to talk about.
Well, as I say, I retired. I'll start when I hired in.
That's great.
I hired in, I think, in May of 1942. And at the time, I was working in Detroit at the International Salt Company. And I thought it was about time I made a change. I had gotten married and needed a little improvement in my position. So I sent out a resume to various places. I received a telephone call from Oldsmobile.
Who called you? Do you remember?
I'm not certain. It was someone in the employment department, in the personnel.
What were you trained in that they would call you and select you?
Well, I had an engineering background. I was not a college graduate. However, I did have a background in civil engineering and mining engineering through my work prior to going to Oldsmobile. And I took time off from my job at the mines to go to Lansing, and I was interviewed by Charlie Bruner.
Charlie Bruner.
In plant engineering.
What year did you tell me?
1942.
1942.
In May of 1942.
Were we into war work then?
Oldsmobile was into war work.
Right.
I was in the salt mine, and that was an essential industry. So you could call it war work too. But I was interviewed by Charlie Bruner. Joe Newman was acting plant engineer at that time because the plant engineer had died, and his name, I don't recall his name right now. Joe Newman was acting plant engineer. And Charlie Bruner wanted me to come to work the next day. That's how hard up they were for help, I guess. But I told him I couldn't come in for 2 weeks because I had to give the other employer 2 weeks notice at least. So I went back to Detroit, and I came back to Oldsmobile on the 25th of May, 1942, as a design checker in the plant engineering department.
And what building was that in?
Building 40, second floor.
Who was your supervisor there, or foreman, do you recall?
Charles Bruner.
Oh, and then, okay. And then who was the superintendent?
Joe Newman.
Joe Newman.
He was plant engineer.
I see, and that was under
And
him, right?
Charlie Bruner was, well, he was the head of the drafting department or design department in plant engineering.
What were you working on when you were hired in?
Well, I was design checker. They were working on installations of heavy presses for the 155 millimeter cannon barrel, 155 millimeter cannon barrel. And one of my job was to check the designs of foundations for presses and anything else that the draftsmen were working on or designing. Then let's see. That's long years ago, and sometimes my memory isn't as good as it should be.
How heavy were the machinery that was getting in?
Tons.
Tons and tons.
Yes.
And that was machinery to build the 155?
Well, no, the barrels would come into us from the foundry, and you had to we had presses that straightened the barrels. Now, these barrels were probably as long as from, up to 20 feet, I guess they were.
What boundary would they come in from?
That I don't know.
I see, okay, that's all right.
And the press would be, lay the barrel in there and sight it, straighten it, press it down and bend it. You'd be surprised that these barrels, the butt end was probably that big in diameter, which is probably 12 or 14 inches in diameter, and the other end would be down to maybe 9 inches or 10 inches. Heavy steel. And those things would take apart just like that in the press, and then they'd come right back. But that was the straightening press.
I see.
And of course, there were other large machines that had to be installed at the time too, because we were machining the breech block of the cannon. It was a tank cannon, and they were making 155 millimeter shells or 155 millimeter machine guns. Or 50 caliber machine guns, and they were making the 155 millimeter shell. And those big presses would have to stamp out the shells casings. We didn't make the shell as a live shell, but as a unit that would have the firing mechanism put into them.
So this was just the casing itself?
Yeah.
For the 105?
155 millimeter.
155.
That was a big cannon. These big cannons you see mounted on the tanks that swivel around.
Huh?
Then, of course, I was with Plant Engineering all the time I was at Oldsmobile.
But during the war, you worked mostly on the 155?
No. That was only one
operation?
One operation.
Okay.
But Plant Engineering Department, Jim Waukesha, sure is familiar with it. He was up in Building 40 at the time too. Maybe a little later. I don't recall when Jim came there. But no, the work at Oldsmobile, my work was on the board as a design checker and a designer, draftsman. Then in 1944, the superintendent of the power plant, or the compressor room, I think he left Oldsmobile, and they had to replace him.
Do you remember his name?
Offhand, I don't.
Okay.
But I never met the man. But he'd gone before I had an opportunity to meet. But they interviewed myself and Bill Motz. He was in plant engineering at the same time for 2 jobs. One job was going over to the press plant at Plant 2. And the other job was for general foreman of the power plant area. And
where was the power plant located then?
Well, right behind building 6, no, right behind building 4. I can't think of the number of the building. Eventually my office got into. I think it was 79 or something. I really don't know. I can't think of it. But I decided that since I had some experience in power plant construction and demolition, that I'd opt for the power plant job, which I was given to.
Now, what year was that?
I think it was 44.
44.
I'm not sure, but I think it was.
Don't
44.
remember the month.
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Bill Motz went from plant engineering over to Plant 2 in the workman.
Mm-hmm. And you then went into the power plant in what capacity?
As the general foreman,
General foreman.
called superintendent of power plant and general foreman, whatever.
Mhm.
And then shortly after that, I was given,
What kinds of machinery were in the power plant?
well, I have pictures here that I can show you.
Oh, great.
But it was actually all that was in the power plant was air compressors. It compressed for the compressed air throughout the whole plant. We had huge machines that compressed air.
Now, what was the purpose of that compressed air?
Well, they run all of their tools, the assembly tools for compressed air operated.
I see.
And the paint plant used a lot of compressed air for the paint spray, things of that nature.
So that was really quite a critical area there.
Oh,
in
yes,
the power
very
plant.
very important part of it. And as I say, a little later on, I was given supervision of the pipe shop, the pipe department, plumbing department. And they had probably, I'm not sure how many exactly, about 80 or 90 plumbers at the time.
Now, was that under the power plant?
No, it just happened it was part of plant engineering. See, plant engineering is made up of all of your maintenance departments, like your millwrights, your machine repair, carpenters, painters, tin shop, janitors, yard people, the so-called power plant. That was all plant engineering.
I see.
And I was given the job of supervising all of the pipe shop work as well as the power plant work, because they were, I think, probably it's a matter of convenience as much as anything else, because they were close together.
Mhm.
And out of one office, I could handle both of them.
What year was that? Do you remember?
I think it was probably 45, 46. It was prior to the end of the war, where we went out of war production.
Well, were you there in the power plant when they made the steam heating for the plant?
Well, we were getting our steam from the Board of Water and Light across the river. That was all piped in.
Mm-hmm.
And the air compressors, I don't know if it was two or three, they were run by steam. They were driven by steam. And they produced compressed air, steam. Show you. Here's a picture of one of the flywheels on the compressor. That's a big machine. Tell from that.
Oh my gracious, yes.
No, here's a picture of one of the machines.
Oh, Ingersoll around.
We had several of those. And later on, as the area grew, the war, back into automotive production, we had to increase our supply of compressed air, so we purchased other compressed air machines, electrically driven, and they were out in sections of the plant, other sections rather than the powerhouse.
I see. Is this you here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
I
do you
have-
know about what time that was taken? Are these pictures, Frank or Ralph, that we could
Yeah, you can have them
borrow?
all. You can have them all. Here's a picture of me, and
applied their person?
this was Lee Charland. He was my pipe shop foreman at a retirement party for Tony Kogut.
Oh, yeah.
And here's another picture of the same group. There's a picture of me when I had hair.
You're saying that these pictures are ones that you'd like us to keep,
Well, you can have them if you like.
we certainly can. We'll be glad to use them. These will be a nice addition to the history file.
Because there's a lot of fellows there that are well known, were well known. This is the power plant and pipe shop. Some of
I'm going to just put a little number on that. This picture one here is the pipe shop.
part of the pipe shop, it's just personnel.
Pipe shop and power plant group.
And this is part of the same group.
Okay. Oh, this is you on the right here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
And here in this picture,
low and
right. Okay, you-
this is Charlie. He's a power plant operator.
Charlie,
Okay. I don't know.
okay.
This is Ray Vandermoor. Paul Fultz.
Um, man with glasses. Short is Paul Foltz.
FULTZ.
Foltz. Okay.
This is Bob Smith. He was the power plant clerk.
Bob Smith.
Yeah. I can't think of somebody's last name.
Yes. Oh, this Ingersoll Rand, what was it?
It's an Ingersoll Rand air compressor.
Air compressor.
Steam driven air compressor.
Steam driven air compressor.
And I can't think of this chap was in the tea shop.
You remember what time that was taken?
I don't.
Okay. These are really nice. Oh, that's Clyde Kirschenbaum.
Kirschman.
Oh, great.
Guy
We
Kirschman,
got
11,
2669.
I don't know whether there's anything on the back of those others or not.
We'll check it and see. Great. You think, or did you really want to let this picture of yourself go too?
Well, I don't, did you want it? It's
Well, it would,
nothing like I look today, but
but it would be very nice.
well,
if
you can
would
have
like-
it.
And do you remember about what time that was taken?
Well, it was taken by personnel at Oldsmobile.
Would that be when you were hired in?
No, it was after I was hired in.
After the war, perhaps?
We refer to some of the other pictures. Wouldn't be, it would be before this because I had put on more weight, I think. I was a little bit chubby there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was before 69. The old moon.
Mm-hmm. I did too.
Real simple. Like that.
Okay.
I really don't know. Early, it was before, around 60, I suppose. I did have some other pictures.
Good. Well, we appreciate the sharing these too. It's very nice of you.
If you want to wait just a minute.
Certainly, I'll be glad to do that.
Oh, here's the.
Oh, I don't.
That's Bob Roberts.
What is? It looks so different.
We were up fishing. I don't know where did you go?
Well, you spent a lot of time in plant engineering.
All the time in plant engineering. I was never out of that department.
Okay.
Of course, as I say, it's a large department. It covered a number of sub-departments, like machine repair.
What were the other sub-departments under?
Well, you've got millwright department, machine repair, your design section, plant engineering. plumbing shop, carpenter shop, tin shop, paint shop, yard department, janitors, and electrical department. I think that's about it.
Primarily,
All maintenance, or
maintenance.
setting of machinery, moving of machinery, construction, cleanliness of the plant, cleanup, snow removal, everything was handled by plant engineering. That anything in the maintenance area was handled by plant engineering. It's, I think probably they had maybe, I'm just trying to think of the total number of employees in that particular department, would probably run between 800 and 1,000, covering all of it.
do you remember what you were earning when you were in plant engineering?
What I started out at,
Yeah, what'd you start out at?
$1.25 an hour. And
And that was in
1942.
okay, and then,
Then we petitioned and were accepted to the status of salaried employees.
I
We
see.
went off the hourly.
What year was that? 40 after the
It
war?
must have, no, it was during the war, I believe, that we went on the salary basis rather than continue on an hourly basis. And of course, your deviation or variation in wages or raises came only at negotiation time. And I don't recall how long I was at $1.25 an hour, but if you raised that, if you went from one job to another, you get a little increase.
So,
Let's see, the war was over when, in 1948,
45.
45, yeah, 45, that's right. And then the big job was the turning back to automotive production, in which plant engineering had a great hand because all the removal of the war machinery and the installation of automotive machinery.
Wasn't that quite a job to get out the war machinery?
Oh, tremendous job. And
How did they dispose of that?
that I
machinery?
don't, we would move it out. A lot of it's contract work. Contractors would come in and move it out, and where it went out.
I see. So, Oldsmobile didn't really do the mechanics physically of moving it out. You would contract that.
That would be contract out because it was a tremendous job. You
Yes.
just didn't have the personnel to do it. And the same applies to the installation of the automotive equipment.
Okay.
A lot of the machinery was installed by contract. The reworking of the assembly line, for example, adapted to automotive production, had to be done by a big contract.
Where was the automobile line then?
Well, we started out in building 75.
That was the assembly line.
That was the assembly line, and of course they had down through buildings 16 and an assembly line down through there. And of course, building 36 and 38 was a motor plant. 33 was manufacturing.
Did they manufacture
Well, automotive parts,
the small parts?
crankshafts, any part that goes into the motor that they had the manufacturing machine was done in the motor plant, and the assembly of the motor was done in the motor plant. I didn't get into I wasn't into the manufacturing end of it at all. I had nothing to do with that. But took the plant engineering.
Do you remember any special incidents in plant engineering experience that you'd like to relate?
Not particularly. I was instrumental in having all of the free-flowing drinking fountains throughout the area replaced with refrigerated drinking fountains. I forget who the works manager was at that time.
Would be Tom Downey?
Tom Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to save money on water. So I came up with the idea of replacing these 24-hour running manual drinking fountains with refrigerated drinking fountains, which would give the people, personnel, cool water all the time. They would wire the the stationary drinking fountain. They would wire it open and let the water run all day, see, and all night, 24 hours a day. And I went to quite some extent to determine how much water was used. And with the refrigerated drinking fountains, they would only run when you press the button, and they'd get cold water instantly. They wouldn't need to run them all the time. So it'd save a lot of water. And Tom Downing was agreed that they would put in refrigerated drinking fountains. The first place we put them was in building 60, the old office building. Then we got some in building 62, and then out through the manufacturing area. And finally, we did away with all of the manually operated drinking fountains and had refrigerated drinking fountains throughout the plant. Had quite a savings, I think.
That was your suggestion.
Yes, it was. I instigated the thing.
Do you remember when that went in? Was it after the war?
I believe so.
Hmm.
I couldn't point it.
And under your supervision, Ralph, came the usage like of toilet paper and paper towels and that type of
Well,
thing?
I didn't order or dispense those. That was all done through stores.
Which stores was
Stores,
that?
it would be Stores F.
Stores F. At that time.
Mhm. They would, all materials, paints and everything
Oh,
would come out of Stores F.
now that would be non-productive stores?
Well, I don't know. I think Tom, the supervisor of stores at that time, the foreman, not the supervisor, his name was Downey also.
Tom Downey?
No, Tom Downing was the works manager.
Oh, Frank Downey.
Frank Downing. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. He was foreman of the stores department. And they had tool stores and production materials as well as non-productive materials, I guess.
What else did they do in plant engineering?
We maintained the plant. It's exactly what the name implies. You're maintaining the entire plant from a maintenance standpoint, keeping the machinery running, keeping it in repair, installing machinery, removing machinery, putting up buildings within limits, of course, within our own limits, removing buildings.
Oh, tell us about that smokestack that came down.
Oh,
Were you
yeah.
there then?
I was there then. I was up on the roof of the pump house, which was just north of the stack, when they blew it. That
Well,
was quite a deal.
what were the mechanics going through to get that to fall where they wanted it?
Well, it's the area that they place the charges. And,
Was this an outside concern
oh
that
yes,
did that?
yes, we had nothing to do with that, outside of the fact that we roped it off so that people wouldn't get too close. But that thing fell within, well, I would say, 2 feet of where it was designed to fall, by proper placement of charges of dynamite. It was quite a sight to see it come down. There are pictures of that at Oldsmobile, I'm sure.
Yes, we have a series of pictures. Well, did it take these contractors long to decide where to place the charges?
I don't think it took them too long because,
like a day or so?
no, although I think they had it all planned out beforehand. They know the size of the stack and essentially where they want to fall it. And it's just like a lumberman going into the woods and cutting a tree. He can follow that tree any direction that he wants to. And they're experts at it. So I don't think that it took them long to decide. Probably took them longer to place the charge than it did to decide where to put it.
Mm-hmm. What happened to the bricks out of that chimney? We're all saying that.
Okay, well, most of the bricks from the chimney were hauled to the dump, but I can tell you where some of them. Lee Clark, who this was after the war. Lee Clark, who had been in plant engineering, and he left to start his own construction company. The Clark Construction Company. They were doing some work for Oldsmobile. I had him haul quite a few of those bricks in my backyard. And didn't cost me anything because they were going to the dump anyways. I got a couple of loads of them, a couple of truckloads of them. Tremendous pile in the backyard. And I spent hours and hours cleaning the mortar off of those bricks.
How would you clean the mortar off? Isn't that quite difficult?
Well, yes, it was. I mean, with a mortar, with a brick hammer. I would chip the mortar off, clean up the bricks, and I'd pile them up. And then I had to build a wall and an outdoor fireplace across the back of my lot with these bricks. And Lee Clark did that. It cost me more to have the debris that I accumulated from cleaning them hauled out of my yard than it did to get the bricks. But I think that wall is still standing. That's part of the bricks anyway.
What else went on in the powerhouse? Let's get back to the powerhouse.
Well, as I say, the only thing that we did there was press air.
Now that would
distribute steam throughout the plant.
That would provide heating and cooling.
Let's see, steam heating. Yes, it provided some steam heat. And the compressed air, we didn't use compressed air for cooling.
That was more for the machinery in the plant, for the tools.
The tools, the air tools.
Air tools.
And we didn't control, but we kept track of the amount of air produced, the amount of steam that we used. We read meters for water consumption of the plant, and we kept those records. Electricity, we kept the meter readings of those. All the utilities that were used by the plant, the records were kept through the powerhouse. Didn't pay the bills, but we saw them.
Well, Ralph, do you remember any time when we had water contamination or some emergency or some problem?
Nothing real serious, and I don't remember anything that was catastrophic or anything like that. I did have one winter we did have a collapse of the dock or the railroad dock area in 75. There was a snow load, the roof fell in, which upset the production schedule quite a bit for a while. But there again, we got everybody together and got it straightened out in a short time. But we didn't lose much time.
Now, was that a shipping dock where the cars were going out by rail?
In that area, although this was more or less of a receiving dock for tires and possibly a shipping dock no, it wasn't a shipping dock for bumpers. It was the receiving dock for tires, and I think there's nothing much shipped out of there. It was all received.
Were you there when we had any labor problems?
Oh yeah, I was there for the 48 strike. In fact, I was Oat Benson and I were the only two supervisors who were permitted into the plant all during the strike. I worked 7 days a week as one of the supervisors in the plant. Benson was chief engineer, chief electrician, and he and I were the only two supervisors allowed in the plant at the time.
What was your job then during that year?
I was just there as a overseer.
You certainly covered a lot of ground physically.
Yes, 120 acres. We would, we wouldn't, you couldn't call it patrol, the 120 acres, but we would go around into the various buildings and just keep track of it. I had some men working on the strike too, my so-called steam checkers, utility men who would, 2 by 2, would patrol the plant to check on the steam lines and the air lines and the water lines and everything, all through the plant, all the various buildings. And that was their job. And of course, Old Benson was there as chief electrician. Any electrical trouble, we would refer to him. I don't know whether Old is still living or not. I don't think he is.
You mentioned 120 acres. That was the size of Plant 1 at the time.
Yeah.
1948, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Then plant engineering didn't go over to other plants, 2, 3.
Yes. See, I was also given, for a period of time, charge of the pipe shop, the pipe department in forge plant.
Who was the foreman or superintendent over there then?
Beeman? I'm not sure.
What time was that?
You got me, I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't remember.
Was that after the strike?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say it was after the strike.
Okay. And then what did you do at Plant 2 then?
Well, I had charge of the pipe shop. I would go over there several times during the day, check with my foreman.
And who was he?
I think of his name. I also had the power plant over there. That is the compressor. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
It was quite an extensive job. I covered a lot of territory.
And 3 too, you covered?
No, see, Plant 3 it came later, didn't it? I didn't have anything to do with that personally. Old Benson finally went over there as assistant to the plant engineer. The plant engineer at Oldsmobile also handled the plant engineering at Plant 3.
Do you remember his name?
Well, let's see, there was several of them. The last plant engineer was under me, that was over me, was Bill Rasmussen. Prior to that, what was the fellow's name? Killed in an automobile accident. Prior to that, there was another fellow that is dead now. He was brought in to replace Joe Newman.
Newman was, what was his title?
He was plant engineer, Joe Newman.
For Plant
For Plant 1.
1.
And then at the time, he was assistant, when I hired him, he was assistant plant engineer under Beeman. Beeman was a plant engineer, and Joe Newman was assistant, and Beeman died. Joe Newman took his place. And gosh, I can't think of who became Joe Newman's assistant. I know him, but can't think of it. Ernsberger.
Oh, Ernsberger.
Ernsberger became assistant plant engineer under Joe Newman.
Mm-hmm.
Memories of what it used to. We're all getting that way, I guess.
Right. Well, in this power plant there, or in the whole plant, I guess I should say, Were there any hidden areas and steam tunnels or,
Oh, yes. Not secret places, of course, but there was no, well, there's a steam tunnel. Let's see, was there a steam tunnel at 60? They did have some steam tunnel there. I wouldn't vouch for it.
Mhm.
I know there were some, but just don't recall.
over in the plants?
No, not on the plant. This was, it seems to me it was building 60 in that area. Don't quote me on that.
No, no? Or any other hidden areas?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, areas that the normal person wouldn't know about, but yet there were, installations that were significant.
No, not really, I would say.
Do you remember any new, devices coming in and being installed while you were there? Methods of air conditioning or heating?
Oh, yes, we finally went to extensive air conditioning throughout the plant
Do you remember about what time that was?
after the war.
After the war.
And of course, the installation of the new cafeterias. They used to have an old cafeteria up on the second floor of 40. And they put a new cafeteria in the second floor of 33, wasn't it? 36, which was
33, I believe.
36.
Oh,
36 and 38.
Okay.
I think the cafeteria went up there. And they had another one up in second floor of 75.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's one up
Well,
there.
now that made extra area responsibility for you.
Oh, yes, I mean, I had janitors that had to maintain the cleanliness in the cafeterias.
Mhm. Well, wouldn't there have to be certain additional electrical and plumbing areas
yes.
installed?
Of course, the installation of that equipment was all done by contract,
I see.
and then maintain it.
Okay. You remember any emergencies happening because something didn't function like it should?
Nothing important.
Now, plant engineering reported to what staff head?
The works manager,
And he was Tom Downey?
Tom Downey, started.
And who did you?
Bill Bravalis took his place.
Okay. What kind of a man was Tom Downey to work with?
As I remember Tom Downey, he was a down-to-earth man and a real good individual, but a hard taskmaster too. He wanted things done. He wanted things done right. He didn't hesitate to tell you what was right and what was wrong. Came from Jamesville, Wisconsin, I believe.
Yes.
And Bob Rollis came with him. Bob Rollis when Tom Downey died, Bob Rollis took his place as worksman.
Okay, do you remember about what time that was?
I wouldn't put a date on it.
Okay, we can check that. What kind of a man was Rollis to work with?
Excellent, very good man.
Did he come out in the plant often?
Oh, yes. But he was well liked by all of them, as far as I know.
I remember seeing any of the general managers in the plant, Ralph?
Oh, Wolfram wasn't out in the plant too much. Prior to Wolfram,
We had Skinner.
S.E. Skinner,
Mhm.
he would come through the plant quite often with his retinue.
Mhm.
And
Oh, he wouldn't be alone. He would have someone
I
with
had
him.
some
Mhm.
always a jacket on him, always a button jacket. And as I recall, it was quite often a double-breasted jacket. Maybe I'm wrong there. It just the picture comes to me. Very meticulous man. Oh, incidentally, he was a submarine man during World War. And the plant engineer was his commanding officer during the war.
Who was that?
Well, I'm trying to think. Up, up. He was commanding officer during the World War, became plant engineer to replace. He was brought into the plant from Cleveland, Ohio, a plant down there. He had been submarine commander, and S.E. Skinner was his lieutenant, or in other words, he was an officer under the commander of the submarine. Then S.E. Skinner became general manager of Oldsmobile, and Bob was plant engineer. Reverse roles.
Yes, rather interesting, wasn't it? What kind of a man was Mr. Skinner?
Oh, I really don't know. I didn't know him that well. He was a
Mm-hmm. Okay.
run-ins with him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was called for him at one time. I'll forget it. He was summoned to his office, and here was Bill Mahoney, a number of other top echelon supervisors, men of the up group. You know, and I can't recall right now what the problem was, but they had me sitting. There was Mr. Skinner's desk, and there was a chair there, and I was sitting in this chair. Mr. Skinner was behind his desk, and the other 3 or 4 or 5 guys were lined up over here in chairs, and we sat there, and I didn't say anything until Mr. Skinner said, "Well, who's going to start it?" And none of these staff people would say anything. Finally, I had to open the conversation myself, and I think it was, gosh, I wish I could remember what the subject was. I can't remember what the subject was, but I was glad to get out of there.
So did you open it? Did you ask him why you were there?
Oh, yes. I said, well, no, as I recall, if no one else is going to say anything, I said, I would like to know why I have been summoned to the front office. And as I say, it wasn't anything serious because otherwise I'd probably been kicked out, but I really can't recall what the subject was, what the reason was.
So it didn't last very long then.
No, I was only there about 10, 15 minutes. But it surprised me that none of the staff members would say anything until Mr. Skinner
Now,
requested to somebody to speak up.
Yes, that is interesting. Did you, Mr. Wolfram, did he come out? Plant?
Yes, but not during the day, Stanley.
Uh-huh.
Oh, incidentally, I had some other pictures. I wish I could find them right now. But I was in Dale Carnegie.
Oh,
I think I was in the 3rd class of Dale Carnegie, and then after I graduated from that, I was instrumental in. I was made an instructor in Dale Carnegie, and Pete Estes was in one of my classes,
interesting.
and some of the other individuals who went on up the ladder were in classes that I instructed.
Do you remember any names?
I wish I could. I was instrumental in starting Dale Carnegie class in Jackson Prison.
Oh, you were?
We held, while I was there, while I was in Dale Carnegie there, 2 sessions, 2 classes of 13 weeks each at Jackson Prison to help rehabilitate the prisoners. And that was quite an experience.
Well, it must have been. You would go to Jackson and these were,
Every Sunday, we would, for 13 weeks, another individual and myself,
do you remember his name?
Jim, I've got his picture someplace.
That's all right. How nice was this?
How large or how long?
How long? I mean,
13 weeks.
you said you went every Sunday. How long did the course?
Oh, the class would last about 2 hours, 2 hours.
I see.
And I had 2 classes down there. They continued after I left Dale Carnegie.
How many people were in the courses? Did it seem
Roughly about 40 to 44.
Did the people respond?
Quite well, yes. That was a tremendous experience. We had murderers, car thieves, check kiters, well, it's the run of the mill with the
The bad boys,
The
that's
bad
a
boys,
maximum security.
lifetimers. And Speaker of the House, come in.
Hello, I'm going to shut this off while you meet here.
I had some pictures, and I can't remember where the pictures are now. Oh, but I had some back in the bag.
Yeah, well,
If I can find it, I'm gonna send it to you.
well, nice meeting you.
Well,
Go ahead.
you too, Maggie. Really glad to. Oh, you have to have about 40 in the class.
Yeah.
Met for 16,
It's 13 weeks
13 weeks,
and
2 hours about of.
2.5 hours on a Sunday.
Did you feel that the men really got something out of it?
Oh, I think so. What we were trying to do, a lot of these prisoners were subject to parole shortly after the
So you retired in,
1973.
is that early in the year? May 1973? And your supervisor then at that time was?
Rasmussen was
Mhm. Oh, Ralph, did you already plan to retire at that time, or was this an advantage of one of the
I retired at
promotions?
64. I couldn't stay one more year. I decided it was time I got out.
Was this an offer from the factory that you could take that, or
No, I requested.
you just, I see.
64.
That time you were located in building
62.
62.
The second floor. All the plant offices, except the plant engineer himself and the design section, was still in 62.
What did the design section do?
Well, they designed new foundations, structures,
Building the structures?
anything pertaining to the plant engineering departments that had to have a design sketch drawing.
How many people worked in that area?
It varied, of course, during the war, it's quite heavily, reduced quite a bit. I don't know.
Would you have a half a dozen?
Oh, yes, probably 20 detailers, draftsmen.
They were all in building 62.
No, they were in 40 along with the plant engineer and city plant,
I see.
his office.
How did you make the steam for the heating of the
We
plant
purchased it from the city.
from the city? So all of the steam that came into Oldsmobile was purchased from the city of Lansing?
Yeah.
You have an idea how many, what was it? Do we kilowatts or pounds of steam, or how did, was that?
We got steam, superheated steam in the compressors at, gosh, I really can't, I don't recall what the pressures were, but it was superheated steam And then when we exhaust from the compressors out into the steam lands into the plant. The high pressure steam came into the power plant, I think it was at 250 pounds pressure, pounds per square inch. And we exhausted steam into the power plant lines at something less than that. That's what I can call what steam pressure was carried at. But we produced steam, we produced compressed air at 100 pounds per square inch, distributed all through the plant. And we also started a talking books program
Talking books program at,
at Oldsmobile from the Carnegie Group.
remember when that was?
I wish my dates were better. I don't remember the dates. No.
Well, tell me about that talking book
Well,
program.
I'm trying to see if I can find a name on here that was myself. I have a picture of myself and two other fellows recording in our living room in Lansing on a recorder we were doing for the college.
MSU or
Yeah.
LCC?
MSU.
MSU. Mhm.
And at that time, we were recording on floppy disks. And the Oldsmobile had purchased for us the recording machine. Individuals would take that machine and take it home and read and record
And like a story or a
a
novel?
novel or story or a textbook or whatever. I don't think that any great use was made of them because we were not too adept at proper method of recording, making those recordings. And when you played them back, I was not particularly satisfied with the results. Excuse me.
That fellow's named on the chapel was Fred Chase.
Yeah.
But I don't know just yet.
Red Chase.
Thank you. What was your retirement party when you retired?
I didn't have a regular retirement.
Didn't?
I think a group from a group of the maintenance men, the hourly men, and some of the foremen got together and we had a dinner. That was my retirement party.
Right there at the plant or?
No, we went out a place on the west side.
Emo's West?
No, I don't think so.
West. Well, then you supervised both hourly and salaried people?
I had foremen working. Dick Whiters was one of the men I worked with. Howard Rowland, he was assistant plant engineer. Dick Whiters. Don Tupel, he was a foreman. He was a general foreman.
Mhm.
They should have had Bob Cook. I don't know. When I was up in 40 on the design section, Bob Cook was in plant layout, I think, in building 40.
That was about what year was that?
Oh, that was in 42, 43. 4 at least. Up Mooney,
Yes. Oh, he's gone.
he was up in 40 also.
What was he doing then?
He was in plant layout, I believe. Of course, you probably knew Walter Campbell.
Yes.
He was here.
Who does he?
Howard Earley,
Yes.
he lives here.
Who does he? Right here in your
Yeah,
car?
right here in the park.
He didn't return his form. We'd sent him a form too. So we're not calling on him, but it would have been nice to.
Bob Barlow was the
Bob.
plant engineer
Bob,
after Joe Newman. And I see these names, I can remember them. And Oldsboro, I guess After Rasmussen left, Walt Sparrow became plant engineer. Out of that time, he was on the board and plant engineering. Months. And McGlone, he worked in building 40.
What did you do?
He was in plant layout. Eventually, he came, I think he went to plant 3. I really don't know what his job was later on. He moved up into the corporation. Yeah. You want that list, you can have it.
Is this all right? This would be
Oh,
very
yeah,
helpful.
sure. It gives a lot of names on there.
Yes. Very helpful.
And if I can find any other pictures that, I know I have some others.
You want these things back and we can return them.
Oh, you can return them.
These will be, where are you in this picture here?
I may not be there, I don't know. This is the retirement of the guy that's sitting in the boat. His name is in that list. For sure. Oh, he had retired before, so he wouldn't be interested. But this is the fellow that's retiring
Okay.
right there, and I'm over here, I think. And he was a machine repair foreman.
Oh, okay. Very
And
fine.
that is it's part of the day shift of the machine repair and the millwrights, pipe fitters, the carpenters, and the whole ball of wax. I'm down here.
Oh, yes. Nice.